Hello and welcome everyone to the Evolve Self-Healing podcast, supporting you to reconnect with the wisdom of your soul, rise above old patterns and beliefs, open to love in all forms. I am your host, Tanya Stevens, formerly Penny. I am a mind-body healing guide, a spiritual mentor, author of the Connect with the Divine You book and journals, creator of the Evolve Self-Healing Method. In today's episode, I'm going to be sharing about opening to receiving. So let's dive in. Every single one of us has a part of us that would like to receive more of what we desire. Another way to say that is more love in every area of your life, in all forms. And this part of us does believe that we do deserve love in every single form that it takes. This part of us knows it can receive more. And for almost everyone on the planet, there are still hidden or unconscious parts of us that don't believe that. So let's start by just saying, what is love? When I say open to love, open to receiving, open to love in all forms, what do I mean? So when you think about the 8 life areas that I talk about, self-connection, health, mind and body, spirituality, relationships with others on the planet, your passions, your career, purpose, money, material, also location. When you think about all of these life areas and what you really desire in them, that is what I'm talking about in terms of receiving love in all forms. So supportive and fulfilling relationships, a career, job that we love, a business that we love, if you own your own business, that you feel fulfilled by, receiving more monies, having all of the time that you desire for self-care, for healing, for playtime. So that is what I mean by love in every single form. So many of my clients come to me and they say, I have been working with the law of attraction for a long time, and it's not fully working for me. And there is a very good reason for that. So, law of attraction, as I have found, and most of my clients have found, is not enough. It is a step, right? We must get clear on what we desire. We must get clear on what does that love look like that we desire in all 8 of these life areas. Yes, that is a step. So getting clear, number 1, is a step to receiving more love in all forms. Love desires 100%. Absolutely. And then focusing on that with ease, right? Focusing on what we desire with ease. Absolutely. And again, many of us, because of our past experiences, so what we saw growing up, what we heard growing up, and our actual experiences growing up, because of all of those, and we're going to also add in there what we experienced in our other lives, what was passed down through our DNA by our ancestors, we do hold, often unconsciously, limiting beliefs and fears that block us from receiving. And that is what I want to focus on, supporting you to uncover today. Because those are the pieces that hold you back, even if you're doing everything else that the law of attraction says to do. This is an absolute necessary piece so that you can fully, easily receive 100% what you desire. Love 100%. So let's go ahead and touch on each of these very common blocks. Most people on the planet have these, whether you are aware of it or not. And many of my clients will say, yes, I know about these, but I've worked on those. Yes. And as we know, there are layers. There are layers, always layers. So, number one, the amount that you can receive is directly connected to how worthy, how good enough, how acceptable you feel. I'm going to say that again. The amount that you can receive is directly connected to how worthy you think you are, you feel. If you feel good enough, if you accept all parts of yourself, body, emotions, etc., your past, etc. So that I see as a really big block for most of my clients. Most people on the planet are still carrying layers of unworthiness, the perfection, not good enough, and not feeling that there is a part of themselves that is acceptable. That is going to unconsciously block receiving 100%. Another biggie is guilt and shame around receiving. So many of us growing up were guilted or shamed when we asked for what we wanted, needed, or desired. We were guilted and shamed. Now, our parents did this oftentimes for a good reason. And this is because, doesn't make it right, but we understand why they did it. They maybe didn't have the resources, the finances. And so what they did, instead of saying, we don't have the money for that, because oftentimes it was money, but it could have been just asking for more attention that they didn't have to give or didn't want to give, right? And you could have been called needy or greedy. So the needy or greedy thing is really big, needy or greedy. So I was always said, I was always told when I asked for more and it related to money, you should just be happy with what you have. Why do you always want more? Right? So I was put down for wanting more and told I should just be happy with what I have. I was also told I was selfish. So many of you might have heard that. And again, it was because our parents didn't have it to give or didn't want to give it for whatever reason. Right? Maybe you wanted more attention or time and you were told, no, I don't have time. I have to work. Right? So therefore, you also picked up the I'm not important, I'm not good enough can also lead to that when that's what happened. So do you have guilt and shame around receiving? Almost everybody does. And I'm going to add on to there, many of us in our other lives, and if you notice, I've been saying other lives instead of past lives, right? We were in other lives where we were healers, we were spiritual, whatever people we were. And that was also a belief that was implanted in us. It's not spiritual to want money, as an example. Right? And as we know, many, even today in religion, it is shifting. But if you were religious and you were a priest or a nun, you weren't supposed to have a romantic partnership. So we've got all these pieces also, again, usually unconscious, happening in our background, in the unconscious, subconscious. So many of us have fear, unconscious fear around receiving. So you might have learned it wasn't safe to receive. Maybe you would be given something, but it would be taken away because you were being punished. That can impact you. You might have had strings attached, right? So as an example, Many of you know there was a lot of abuse in my house, verbal, physical, sexual, that I was at the end of. And oftentimes I was given material things or was taken shopping after the quote unquote bad shit happened. So there's a part of me now that says, oh no, I don't want to receive because that means something bad is going to happen. So again, we have unconscious fear. It's not safe to receive. And maybe in a other life, you had a lot of money and you were killed for it, or robbed, or tortured, or right, all of those things that lead to it's not safe. Maybe in your household, I heard all the time that rich people are greedy. Rich people are dishonest. So there's fear again. I don't want to be considered dishonest. I don't want to be considered, fear of being called dishonest or greedy or evil because I have more money, as an example. And then another one that is very common is what I call the receiving ceiling. So the amount that you're able to receive is limited to what you received as a child and or what you saw your family receive. So as an example, both of my parents, factory workers, there was definitely a money ceiling. Also, my parents, in their relationship with each other, they settled until they got divorced when I was, I think, 16 or 17. But they settled in a marriage that was very unhappy, toxic, violent, abusive for many years, because they also learned that they couldn't have everything they wanted in a marriage, in a partnership. So do you have a ceiling around receiving? And again, that's typically limited to what you received as a child and or what you saw your family receive. Remember, as a child, the thing we want the most is to be accepted and loved and to belong in our family. So fast forward to being an adult. This is unconscious. There's a part of you that says, I can't receive more than my family did, or I won't belong, or they'll criticize me, or they'll judge me, etc. And that is what creates a ceiling to receiving as well. Many of us also got the message that in order to receive more, and that could be money, material things, right? Many of us got paid to get good grades, or if we did well in sports, right? So you have to work hard, you've got to win in order to receive more love. And the love could be money, or the love could be praise, etc. Time spent together, a trip. So this can now show up in your adult life in personal relationships, right? So I've got to work harder to make this relationship work, to get more love. It could show up at work. I need to work harder at work to get a raise, to get a promotion, to receive more money. It can show up in friendships. Again, many of us overgive, right? Thinking that we're finally going to, if we work hard at this relationship, we're finally going to get the support that we desire. But that's not necessarily true. This is a very limiting belief that many of us are being called during this time on the planet to shift. They gotta work harder to receive more. And more might be scraps for many of us, because a lot of us listening to this did not receive a lot of emotional and mental support as a child. Physical support, safety, right? So many of us had to work really hard to survive. We fell into people-pleasing, superhuman, perfectionist. So these, what I just took us through, are the biggest blocks to receiving what your soul desires or love in 100% in all life areas, however you want to talk about it. So a question I often get is, how long does it take? How long does it take Once we become aware of these limiting beliefs, right, these blocks, these limiting beliefs, these fears, how long does it take to shift them so I can receive 100%? And my answer is it's different for everybody. There is divine timing or our soul's plan, and it's a process for most of us. And it's a daily practice. So we have to get to the point that we have shifted that limiting belief or fear, soothed it is another way to say it, enough. And as we do that, our ability to receive will continue to increase more and more and more as you continue to activate what is true and soothe, clear, shift these limiting beliefs and fears. It usually is not a light switch. It doesn't happen overnight, not for most people. Though I will say things at this point are speeding up if you're willing to do the work and, right, willing and ready to do the work, to look at everything I talked about. And you've got to be willing to get support because every single one of us has blind spots, myself included. I still need support from other people to work on clearing out my crap, my blocks to receiving, right? So that is the short answer for how long does it take. So again, and I just want to go through a few of my examples. I gave a few, but I want to give a few more to really bring these home. So all the abuse that I endured growing up. So if you've had verbal, physical, sexual abuse, if you've experienced neglect, especially emotional neglect, you're going to have an underlying belief that I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not acceptable. I definitely had that one to work through. Still am to some degree, even though I've worked through a big chunk of it. I was also shamed and guilted, as I said before, for asking for more. I've had to really work on this piece. My parents definitely had a money ceiling, as I said. There were strings attached to receiving in my house. And praise was rare. I had to do a lot to receive praise, especially from my father. So all of these have been huge pieces that I've had to work on in order to receive more. And it's been happening, right, over the last 20 years. That was one of the big wake-up calls that the MS came knocking on my door for, was to say, hey, you're settling. You are settling for less than what you deserve. And so my journey went, right, down into the shadows, down into the depths. So again, some things you can do to get started, to open to receiving. Number one, get clear on where are you right now with receiving. On a scale of 1 to 10, where are you on receiving? And again, if you think about the different life areas, you might be good at receiving, or you might be receiving almost 100% in one life area, but you might not in others. But again, typically, it's going to be pretty close across the board, but there could be some discrepancies. So scale of 1 to 10, 10, I'm at 100%, I'm receiving love 100%. 0, not so much, right? You've got a long ways to go. And I always recommend to rate this. This is from my former occupational therapy background, right? Because we can't change anything we're not aware of. So we don't use these numbers to beat ourselves up. We use them to get clarity. Number 2, do take some time to reflect on and get clear on what you do desire. What would love 100% look like in your life when you look at all 8 life areas I talked about earlier? So take some time to reflect on that. That's telling the universe, yes, this is what I want. This is what I desire. And I encourage you to dream big. Many of us, because of all this past gunk, we were taught to dream small. Don't ask for too much. Be grateful for what you have. Newsflash. as a soul, you came here to show yourself what a huge, powerful co-creator, aka receiver, you are. It is our nature as a soul who is always expanding and evolving to want to experience more. So it is really ridiculous to shame ourselves and guilt ourselves for something that is built in. We are hardwired to want more. Yes, we do want to be grateful for what we have. Absolutely. Absolutely. So that is part of the equation. Do have gratitude for what you have. Please do every single day. And get clear on what you desire. What would that love 100% look like in each life area? Then we're going to move on to awareness of what might be a block or those blocks that I was talking about earlier. So the easiest way to find or discover, uncover your unconscious, subconscious blocks is to, one, reflect on your past. What did you personally experience? And what did you see and hear around receiving? Number two, look at your present. What do you currently have in each life area? What are you currently experiencing in each life area? That's going to show you what you believe as well. Right? So as an example, in my mid-20s, I had to ask myself, why in every partnership, serious partnership that I had been in, had I been cheated on? And I counted something like 7 or 8 times, different relationships. And the common denominator was me. And so I was like, oh, a part of me must think I deserve to be cheated on. Right? Otherwise, I wouldn't keep attracting men that cheated on me. So I had to really work on that, clearing out that. Now, doing this, again, it's hard sometimes to see our own blocks. So if you aren't working with somebody, I highly recommend you do, whether it's me or somebody else, right? Somebody who's got the skills and the tools, because that's the next piece. Once you become aware of your blocks, your AKA limiting beliefs and fears, then you have to have tools. The awareness of those is not enough. Awareness is part of the equation, absolutely necessary. And then there needs to be tools you use on a daily basis to shift those limiting beliefs and to soothe those fears. Plus, activate what your soul, your higher self, knows to be true now. So as an example, right, the part of me that believes I deserve abuse, I don't deserve love, right? I'm not good enough. I don't deserve love because I was abused, is another way to say it. I need to activate the truth with this part of me, right, that says, and I say activate and soothe kind of interchangeably. I have to tell this little girl who was very abused, sweetie, it had nothing to do with you. You did not deserve it. These people had unresolved trauma and they projected it on you. It does not mean you weren't lovable, good enough, worthy of love. It means they were incapable of giving it to you, and you do deserve it. And I'll make sure as your divine parent that, right, that you deserve it and get it now. Right? So a lot of soothing, a lot of truth activating. And one of my main tools that I use and that my clients use is the self-healing process, where we step into those divine parent shoes that we're all learning to be for our younger parts here to ourselves. And that takes you through a process to help you clear out, feel and release, shift, right? All the emotions that are attached, all the limiting beliefs and fears, and activate, soothe with all of those truths that I've been talking about. So that's one of my main tools, as well as others. Some of you might use EFT tapping. Some of you might use EMDR, right? Everyone has different tools they're called to use. But those working with me, that's one of my main ones. Absolutely. So in a nutshell, that is how you open to receiving more love, more of what your soul desires, 100%. So I want to thank you for joining me for the Evolve Self-Healing Podcast, and feel free to share this episode with others who will benefit. Almost everyone on the planet can receive more than what they are in every single area of their life. Doesn't mean we're greedy. It means that's what we're here to do as a soul. That is what we're here to do, to see how much we can receive, create, co-create, etc. And if you'd like more of my deeper support around receiving, you can find all the ways to do that below. Thank you so much. I just want to say I'm so grateful that you're part of this podcast community and that you are so courageous to be doing this deeper work that we're all being called to do right now. That is what is not only going to shift your life, but also the entire planet. Namaste.